going back to the messaging, if you are more transparent, raw, upfront, more believable, and less, oh, this wonder drug from the Amazon that you've never heard of, don't worry about it because we have some obscure study to back it up. That kind of marketing worked 10, 20 years ago. Now everybody's got a supercomputer in their pocket and can easily Google if it's bullshit. They can look at reviews, they can look at results, they can say, hey, there's 100 other competitors at a better price point with more sales. That's got to be more legit. So like the era of hardcore direct response marketing or salesy slick marketing is slowly dying.
All right. Welcome to today's episode of the VidTao Podcast. This is VidTao Co-Founder Ian Nagy. And today we're going to be chatting with Mr. Peter Hewlett. He's been behind the scenes on many of the best direct response offers in the past 10 years, from launch to exit for multiple 7, 8-figure offers. Everything from operations, copywriting, and everything in between, conversion rate optimization. Peter is a real secret weapon for many of today's top direct response companies and kind of stays in the shadows a lot. So it's really cool that we're going to be able to talk with him about really his secret sauce and how you can apply it in your own campaigns to really boost conversions and boost results. So let's get into the show with Peter. This podcast is brought to you by VidTao.com. VidTao is our free YouTube ad library and spy tool, research tool. It's VidTao.com. At VidTao, we have close to 1 million unlisted YouTube video ads that you can search, find, discover how they're doing on a day-by-day basis. So you can really see what ads your competitors are running, see ads in different markets that you can model to create new winning ads for yourself, and a whole lot more. It's all there inside VidTao.com. Plus, we have a premium edition. So the database is free to access, but then we also have a premium edition where you have full unlimited access to the database. And inside there, we also provide training. So we also run an agency called Inceptly. That's INCEPTLY, Inceptly.com, where we've managed over $150 million on YouTube. It's a video traffic agency, and we've worked with everyone from brands like Descript.com, Huel, to real scrappy direct response info products, supplements, health, beauty, e-commerce, you name it, we've done it, and love sharing what we've learned. Every week we drop new training in there, everything from YouTube ad media buying to running e-commerce creatives on YouTube to hardcore tracking and attribution tutorials to really level up your data science game for advertising and everything in between. Right now, as we speak, we're working on a training regarding YouTube Shorts. Hopefully we'll be live by the time you hear this. On and on and on. This is our passion, is video advertising, and we want to share it with you inside of VidTao Premium. And actually right now, for a limited time, you can get access to VidTao Premium for a very special price. So if you go to VidTao.com, sign up for free, check out the database, upgrade to Premium for this very special price, you'll get access to all of the database and all the trainings. And also wanted to add that at Inceptly, we do free brainstorm calls with clients like you. So if you ever want to get help or ask questions about your YouTube ads, your video traffic on other platforms, we're available to chat. Just go to inceptly.com/call, CALL, and set up a time to chat. It's free and would love to speak with you. Our team's waiting to speak with you. So without further ado, let's get into the show. You've been behind the scenes on a lot of stuff and all, now like more and more front facing, but you've seen some real shit happen and been part of some really big things. So just wanted to give you an opportunity to tell some stories, talk about yourself, and just chat a little bit.
Well, I do like to spin a tall tale from now and again, and who doesn't like talking about themselves? No, man. I mean, our conversation in San Diego is mostly about the nature of humanity and more of like the psychological factors that go, into buying behaviors and just the why behind what motivates people to take action, both in and out of the marketing sense. Cause I think and we discussed this a little bit, it's like, it seems like a fitting place to kick off this fireside chat is the reality is people take their shit way too seriously. Like, I don't care. Like, I know guys that are literally on their way to being billionaires. I know guys with 500 plus employees. I know guys that have $1 billion plus valuations. And I know guys that are just getting their first business going. Like, it doesn't matter so much where you are on your journey, because like there's the whole got to compare myself to the big boys kind of thing. And I'm not, you'll never see me driving a Lambo, with a 10,000 square foot mansion. It's just not my style. Right. But like, regardless of how much wealth you have and how much, dick slinging and how much of a big shot you think you are, other people tell you you are, like, the existential reality is you're on a giant rock hurtling through space at a couple 100,000 kilometers an hour, right? There's 8 billion of us, right? And, the reality is everybody assumes they're going to live till they're 90 or 100 and have some like grand adventure, but you don't know if you have cancer or going to have a brain aneurysm. Not to get like morbid, but like,
it's true.
When you think in terms of global perspective, that empowers you to really live in the present, because like the past isn't real, the future isn't real, right? Those are projections of your own assumptions inside of your brain, right? Based on your own reality. Like, take a page out of the Matrix, if you will, for easy comparative. That's a pop culture thing that people can wrap their heads around. It's like, hey, at the end of the day, you think you're hot shit, your launch is amazing, you have the best product on earth, you think you should be charging whatever dollars and you deserve to be on a yacht in the Caribbean. It's like, yes, you do deserve the best possible human experience. And I hope that you live the best possible human experience that you absolutely can. Like, not to get into religion or anything like that. Like, I don't care what people believe. Everybody has their own belief system. But like, if you're not living in the present and appreciating like where you are on your journey, then like, what are you doing any of the marketing stuff for? Right? Like, it's all ridiculous. Like, whether that's quality time with the family, personal development stuff to challenge yourself, to facilitate growth, whether it's travel to expose yourself to new cultures and life experiences, whatever the thing is that you cherish, that you are protective of with your time and energy, then like, that's the thing that should be the focus. Like, most of the people in our world, in the direct response or e-com or internet marketing world, like, they have it backwards. They're, oh, I'll be happy when I get to 100 million in sales. I'll be happy when I have 100 employees working for me and X amount of money in my bank account. It's like, that's not, like, those are great goals. Like, if you want to have 100 employees and have a 100 million a year gross company and have, 40, 50 million in the bank, cool. Like, whatever, go for your goals, like, more power to you. But like, if those are your determinant factors for your own happiness and fulfillment, like in life, then no amount of launches or hiring employees or dollars in the bank will ever get you there. Right. It's all futile, because it's like a facade, right? Like, it becomes a moot point because you can't possibly ever get to that level of satisfaction. So like, when we're talking about psychology, which is, a lot of the, the buying behaviors and some of the stuff that we were talking about in San Diego, it's like, I always like to start from that point, because like, the reality is you can go mad chasing things that don't matter and setting up like fake KPIs and measurement tools for yourself for success. And that's where you see like hardcore entrepreneurs that have it all together burn out and are just miserable working 16-hour days, and they end up divorced without kids, and that want to talk to them in a sham of a life that they don't feel empowered by, and they don't feel happy with. So I don't know. I know you and I vibed on that quite a bit, because like, at the end of the day, like, the why behind everything not only empowers you to like enjoy your human experience, but like, if you can't empathize with where people are at and what they want and what they're trying to do with their lives, then how can you possibly sell effectively to them? Now, obviously this is not true with every product. Like, if you're selling like a pair of sneakers, there's no like big existential why behind buying a pair of Nikes. You like the brand, it fits well, you think it's dope, cool, buy it. It's, normally like $100 or whatever. So there's not like onion layers of emotion and like psychological response behind, simplistic buying behaviors. And that's just where they're at with emotional states and, what they're purchasing. But like when you're trying to sell them a dream, when you're trying to persuade somebody to take an action outside their comfort zone, if you're trying to persuade someone to invest a heavy amount of time, money, or assets into something, there are friction points along the way, right? The doubts, the what ifs, the BS meter, whatever it is that pops up for them that's going to prevent them from taking the action that you're trying to get them to take, right? Like we're all persuaders at the end of the day, whether you're selling, a $5 tactical flashlight or $100,000 a year coaching program.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, question for you really that I have is, so you have a super holistic perspective on all this, very sort of healthy and grounded and taking this global perspective. When have you always tried to ride that, or is it more been like a pendulum situation? Because you've been, just for some context, Peter, you've been behind the scenes on a lot of the big direct response businesses in the past, it's been like 10, 15 years, something like that.
About 10 years. Yeah. Before that, I was doing ops for Costco Wholesale in the Southwest Division. So I was actually like at 19, I was the youngest level of manager in the entirety of Costco company. Wow. So like out of 500 locations in, 90 countries at the time, like I was the absolute youngest one. So I had like 300 people working for me at 19.
Wow. Dropped into that. That's crazy.
Yeah. So it was like one of those things because they had some whole like, back then it was like a big fast track, like let's get the next generation. Cause like, Price Club was founded in the 80s. And so it was like, most of their originating like senior staff members were coming up on retirement, and all they had were a whole bunch of like mid-level guys. So they were trying to fast track a whole bunch of us young bucks to like, get on the career path and be like 40-year guys to take over and assume the mantle. So like that helped with the global perspective. I grew up super religious. Like my old man's been a deacon of his church here in Texas for 30 years. So like a Calvinist Presbyterian kind of religious view. So like, kind of stepping into like my own belief systems and, coming into adulthood, it was like it was a great reminder that like, okay, there's so many people like that particular subset of Judeo-Christian is very outreach focused. So like tons of missionary trips, all that kind of thing. So I think the global perspective was kind of instilled in me from the get-go. And obviously like a big part of like outreach and mission work is, being able to empathize with people and just, have a real conversation with them, because like you can't BS your way into converting someone to a new faith, right? Or even just forget the converting part, just like being able to lay out like your belief system. So like as a child, I was so used to having almost like debate club, right? It was like kind of just like, hey, here's what I believe and here's why kind of thing. Obviously, like my views have shifted as an adult, and like I don't personally hold the same values as I once did, but like, between those two things, it really prepped like that global empathetic, I would say, response system. That's kind of how I operate on a day-to-day basis. And I think it's like a super valuable lesson for anybody in any walk of life. It's like, at the end of the day, you don't know, first and foremost, you don't know what demons other people are struggling with, right? It could be addiction, it could be death in the family, it could be loneliness, right? They could feel like a failure, they could feel estranged from family members, like you name it, there's thousands of ways to battle demons, if you will. And so, the underlying thing there, with that kind of empathetic global response view is like everybody needs a little bit of kindness. So if you can come from a place of being present and appreciating where you're at on a day-to-day and not taking like that tomorrow for granted, because you might not make it to 90 dying in a bed in Florida or whatever.
Right.
Then you're going to be better equipped to live your fullest expression of life, like be the best kick-ass human you can be and enjoy your life. And when you come from that place, I've found that it's easier to connect with people, to be kind to people, to actually listen to them and tell them like your thoughts on things. And, sometimes that translates well into marketing. Obviously, like, a lot of people are trying to figure out how to get their message to their ideal audience. And that is one of the things, like, these days I do a lot of CRO consulting and fractional CMO work, but I still write a decent amount of sales copy. So VSLs and ads and emails and the whole 9 yards, right?
Yeah.
But regardless of what I'm selling, at the end of the day, I think the day and age of like slick marketing gimmicky lingo is kind of going by the wayside, going the way of the ditto for sure. Because like there's so many, the coaching industry is the perfect example. There's so many coaches who coach coaches on coaching.
Yeah. Right. I love that.
And it's all BS. And it's just, oh, look at me with my rented Lamborghini and my supermodel that I paid $100 to take a photo shoot with me. Right. It's like, okay, I know a couple hot girls and I got a slick car. Cool. Great story, bro. Yeah. Like, what value did you add? Did you actually change anybody's life, or are you just trying to convince people that you're hot shit? So, when I think about, going back to our conversation in San Diego, it's like, what are the things, the whys behind people's actions? There's a direct correlation between the whys behind people's actions and believability, right? If they think you're a con artist, if they think you're scammy, if you think you're too pushy with your language, or your actions aren't reflective of the language, i.e. like you can't deliver effectively, and you're trying to pull a fast one on people, intentionally or not, like ultimately the buck stops with you. So if you say, hey, I've got all these things in my course, or, if it's a like group coaching situation or whatever the thing, physical product, a SaaS, doesn't matter what you're selling. The underlying principle remains the same, regardless of vertical, regardless of price point, right? If you're not going above and beyond to enhance the user experience, you're not going to have those customers for long, or you're going to have trouble finding those customers. And ultimately, they're not going to become your brand advocates, which is what you really want, because everybody in every industry ever, regardless of what they're selling, is always chasing a $0 acquisition cost. Who doesn't want free customers?
Absolutely. Right? Yeah.
So if you're not holding up the one end of things, doing what you say, walking the walk, all that good stuff, right? Then how can you possibly ever have a brand, regardless of whether you're selling a pair of sneakers or, a 50,000 a year SaaS, like some enterprise level thing, or even beyond that, in the hundreds of thousands or millions range, if you're in real estate, and you have a bunch of deals that go south, right? On like, an apartment complex or some like business development project, and that happens 10 times, you think anybody's going to want to work with you?
Yeah. No.
Probably not, because they don't want to lose money with you.
Right.
Now, obviously, that's the extreme where we're talking tens of millions of dollars. But take it down to the simplest, right? Because it's easy when you're talking about millions of people on an email list, or like when you're spending millions or tens of millions a month on ad spend. Right. It's super hard to think about the first person. Like, what does a day in the life of this person's shoes look like versus, oh, this is a whole bunch of contact records on a spreadsheet, right? Or in my CRM or whatever, right? So like in that vein, like how do you, let's say you're selling, a beauty product under $100 price point, and you're trying to sell to middle-aged women, let's say 45-year-old married woman with a couple kids in the Midwest. What does her day look like? Does she have time for your hour-and-a-half webinar? Probably not. Right. Beauty products, it's usually e-com or a VSL or whatever. So like, you don't have to worry so much about the time frame, but like longer VSLs, for example, like, does she have 30 to 45 minutes to sit there and watch like all your slick marketing lingo about why this serum is so much better than the 10,000 other ones on the market?
Yeah.
Probably not. Her phone's going to ding, the kid's going to yell, the dog's going to bark, the door's going to ring, like the whole 9 yards, right? So just trying to be conscientious of like, okay, what does her life look like? In the same vein, if you're selling to C-suite, right, and you've got somebody that's making, $500,000 plus a year, climbed the corporate ladder for 20 years, and you're trying to get them on an enterprise level SaaS, or, you're trying to sell them on your service, or, whatever the fuck it is, right? Like, it doesn't really matter. You're asking, and at the same time vying for their attention, because everything in marketing, everything's a battlefield, right? If it's not you, the asshole next to you is going to sell them something. Right. So if you're not direct and to the point, like I see so many, like obviously I do a lot of copy chiefing, and like I look at funnels all day long from in all sorts of verticals, right? So I do a lot of diagnoses, right? And I say, okay, where's the area of opportunity? Where's the path of least resistance? I'm seeing these friction points. How do we improve this offer? How do I get more eyeballs to this? How do I make sure that this is the most direct and applicable language? Even if it's like a curiosity play, where you kind of pull in the thread and stringing them along to get them to the end of the webinar or end of the VSL. That's the nuances, that go hand in hand with the art of writing, right? Creating an infotainment product, because everything from e-commerce to your ad to webinars or VSLs or what have you, all of it is education and entertainment. Right. Otherwise, they're just going to go watch cat videos on YouTube or flip on Netflix or whatever. Boredom is, the death of conversions. So regardless of what you're selling, if you don't keep them motivated and you don't keep their attention, you can't possibly hope to sell them anything.
Yeah, that's true. I wanted to ask you specifically, because all this talk of, empathy and recognizing the human that's there in front of the ad that you're presenting, not just a number, et cetera, et cetera. How did this, are you cool talking about fixed?
Oh yeah. We can talk about that.
Okay, cool. I'm actually, because I want to specifically. So my understanding is you were there for the whole thing, right? From inception to execution to exit, right?
Yeah. So Fixed Water was a water filtration company that Ian Stanley and Dane Alexander started after kind of the implosion of a mini Agora style company that was founded by some of the VPs of Digital Marketer. So I think at the time, this was 2014. I think at the time we probably had like 80 employees, a warehouse, all this stuff. Yeah, we were selling supplements and survival stuff, and then water filtration products as well. So we went and that distributor was actually the inventor of Brita.
Wow.
A guy named Carl out of California. He's a huge plant out there, a couple 100 employees, lives and breathes water. He's been selling water products for 50 years now, probably.
Wow.
So he came up with the original design. He owns all the patents. Brita bought him, well, before Brita was Brita, they bought out the rights to a Walmart viable product with less filtration mechanisms in it, so less layers of the filter, so that they could keep production costs down, so that could get an acceptable price point for Walmart level distribution, right? So after that implosion at the Agora style company crisis, Ian, Dane, and I were working on what the next steps were for us. And we're like, we already have the contact. Let's do this water filtration business. Right. So we went and we flew out and talked to Carl and shot a bunch of crazy gimmicky marketing videos, like Ian drinking toilet water in LAX, like all that stuff. Right. We drank out of ponds, and we did like the classic, like Gatorade test side by side. Like, hey, here's a cup full of dirty water. Here's a bunch of mud. We drop in it now. Watch as it filters through and comes out crystal clear. Right. We did all those kinds of things. And that was a lot of fun. It was kind of like our first foray into going out on our own. And I think like that was a great lesson. Ultimately, like Dane was partnered with Steph and Georgia on some health offers that took off really well, and Ian ended up with a Crohn's diagnosis and was in and out of the hospital there for a little bit. So the assets got sold off to Strawhouse Labs, Kriski in Canada. But like that was a great time, simply because it's building something with people you enjoy, which is the first lesson. Like there's tons of assholes in the world. Like do something with people you enjoy, right? So like getting to build something with my buddies was super, super fun, right? We had a blast day in and day out. There was no one telling us not to do things. So we just did whatever came to mind, right? Nice. So it was like, hey, this is an absurd idea for a ad. Okay. You want to go flip a coin? Who wants to drink out of the toilet? Right? Like stuff like that. There was a lot of fun back in those days. And it was like, I didn't know hardly anything about marketing back then. Dane and Ian owned the company, and, I helped as the operator and like on the creative side, help build it. But, just like if you haven't, for anyone listening, if you haven't had a chance to like roll up your sleeves and just get in the trenches on something, out on your own with buddies, like you don't have to have $100,000 budget. Back when I started, like Facebook advertising wasn't a thing, YouTube advertising wasn't a thing, TikTok didn't exist, Snapchat didn't exist, right? We were buying a couple $100,000 a month on Google, and it was like, penny clicks, right? It was wild, wild west. You could say anything short of curing cancer, right? And so, it was a good learning lesson, because we could do anything and say basically anything. So there was no compliance constraints on the language we could use. Now, unfortunately, a lot of bad apples in our industry kind of ruined that.
I'll say
But, at the end of the day, like it really helped us push the boundaries of what was possible, and that and in ventures for a couple of years after, before things got a little more regulated. There was a lot of opportunity to just kind of be outside the box as much as possible, and doing that with my buddies. And in a couple of ventures in the following years were mostly with friends of mine, and that was so much different than having a job or even like consulting or freelancing, where you kind of have to operate under certain restrictions and parameters because of, the nature of businesses where you don't have full control. Right. And so like, even if for anyone listening, like go start the side hustle, like now is the day. Like it is so easy. Build a Shopify store, write a little copy, throw together some images, find a product you enjoy selling, ClickFunnels, Webflow, whatever kind of software you want to use for anything is out there now. Quiz builders to webinar funnels to, anything you could possibly imagine is like one-click integrations. Back then we had full-time devs on staff who were custom coding every page. Like if something broke, we had to call them like in the middle of the night and be like, hey, there's 1,000 people on the site right now. Can you fix this? So, it's like we would stay up, it'd be like 4 a.m. and we'd watch, we'd stare at Google Analytics up on the projector and watching real time, like dots pop up around the world. And that was just the nature of it. There were no easy plugins. Like if you want distribution these days, hey, if you want to buy 10 pallets of something and ship it over to a 3PL and then have them do all the pick, pack, and the fulfillment and handle everything, that's one phone call, one DocuSign, and an hour of work away from you. Like that is so easy to do these days. So like whatever the thing is that you have been tinkering around with in your head, like do it. And then, for those who have their own ventures right now, it's like when I consult, I always ask like the same kinds of questions, which is, what is the easy way to accomplish the end goal, right? What's the path of least resistance? So if you look at it through that lens, like harder does not equal more freedom for you, does not equal better benefits for your employees. It does not mean more gross dollars or better net margin or a clever way to, deploy your assets and make your money work for you. Working harder doesn't really mean anything. Like, you should work hard, obviously, and like put forth real value and real effort, because not only is that rewarding and fulfilling for you personally, but, at the end of the day, that is magnetizing. It attracts the right kind of people, the right kind of money, the right kind of energy into your life. Not to get too woo-woo or whatever, but like, if you're putting dog shit products out there into the world, or you are half-assing your freelancing or consulting, or if you have a job right now and you are phoning it in, why are you doing that? Like, go get a different job, work harder at it, like change your goals. If you're freelancing and you're working with clients you hate, get different clients.
Yeah.
Same thing with consulting. If you own a business and it's sucking your soul, and you're working 16 hours a day and you're going dead broke and you're miserable and lonely and frustrated and angry, why are you doing that? Just stop, make a change. We have supercomputers in our pocket.
Yeah.
I can talk to people. I'm talking to a guy halfway around the planet right now.
That's right. That's right.
I can never talk to anyone I've ever met in my entire life. I can call an Uber right now, walk out my door, get on a plane, live in Singapore or wherever, Amazon all new stuff to Airbnb that I get in 5 minutes, and go spend the next 10 years of my life somewhere in Asia.
Yeah.
And never answer anything from my past life. That was not possible in my father's generation.
Yep.
My father would say, "Hey, Billy, we're going to go to the bar on Saturday at 8 p.m. I'll see you there." And if Billy doesn't show up, well, Billy's either dead, he's blowing you off because he's an asshole, or, he's found something else to do because he didn't want to hang out or forgot or whatever. So maybe you drive over to Billy's house if he lives close by, and you go say what's up. And if not, then you see him when you see him. Like, what are we going to do in the 80s, right?
Yeah, that's crazy to flash back to pre-cell phone, pre-internet era. Entirely different existence, wasn't it? And this kind of stuff. Like, so when did you, it's crazy you started doing the Costco, you're managing 300 people at Costco as a logistics operations guy at 19. And then at what point did you become aware of this whole world of business happening online? Did you just fall into it randomly? How did that go down?
Yeah. So, my last 2 years, I was at Costco till I was 25, so six years. But the last 2 years, I was splitting my time between logistics and also local marketing efforts to increase. We would go deploy a new location, which is obviously takes hundreds of people, contractors, and tens of millions of dollars to build these new facilities, the shopping centers that everyone goes to, right? So, I would help with the marketing efforts there. So I had some local and phone and light geo-targeting type experience. But nothing I'm selling an ebook to somebody in India kind of thing, right? Ironically enough, I was living in South Austin at the time and had a room for rent in my house. And I was like, oh, well, I like living, I was in my early 20s. I liked living with guys and, having buddies to go out to the bar with, kind of living that life. And so I put an ad up on Craigslist, hey, I've got a room for rent in my house. Interviewed a couple people, had beers with a couple dudes. Then this fucking British asshole shows up, and he's very cocky, got the, couldn't quite place it, not quite Australian, not quite British accent. Turned out to be Ian Stanley for those who know Ian. So I was like, all right, well, literally my thought at the time was, he's kind of a dick, but chicks really like British accents. That was literally my thought. I was just I was 23. Yeah. I was like, you know what? This could be fun. So Ian moved in, and he, at the time, he had a job working a couple hours a day writing for a credit company. So I can't remember which one. Yeah. Credit Solutions.
Yeah. Mike Colella, RIP. Rest in peace, Mike.
Yeah. So that was, I think he was doing 1 hour of work a week. And he was showing me oh, here's a John Carlton book. And he's like, oh, you should like take some of Derek Johansson's, I've seen you writing. It's like, you could totally do what I do. And I'm like, okay. So I started doing some of that. And then he got a job over at that Crisis, the mini Agora style company, and then brought me on as the email manager. Didn't know anything about managing lists. We had like hundreds of thousands of people on this list. Didn't know a single thing about using Maripost. Didn't know, I was like, yeah, I can do this. I mean, I'll figure it out, right?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, my copy was good. Like the guy that owned the company was like, oh yeah, you can write copy. Like just the emails and the landing pages and stuff you whipped up as like a sample for us. Like they look pretty solid, tweak this kind of thing. Like this is more of our voice. But like, yeah, you and Ian figure it out. You go make all the ads. You guys write all the emails. You write all the copy for all the VSLs, all that stuff. So like, Ian probably wrote 70-80% of it, right, at the time, because I was doing some of the email management side of things. So I got to learn like some of the more technical stuff to like, make the business run from a marketing team standpoint. So I work closely with like the dev and the buyer and like some of those guys. So that was a fun kind of crash course into direct response. It was literally like, left Costco and decided to surround in my underwear with Ian writing copy and, drinking at bars, writing stuff and loading emails at 2 a.m.
Nice.
So a little bit of a shift. Yeah. Went straight into the laptop lifestyle. So that was fun. Again, like pushing that helped facilitate that freedom helped facilitate some of like the more outrageous like marketing stuff that we've done over the years. Cause I kind of hit like a switch in the brain where it's like, what, the only thing that I can optimize for as a person is freedom, right? Like my sovereignty is paramount because like, if you don't have control over your mind and your circumstances and situations, then like, what do you have control over? Obviously, external forces, people will do things, accidents will happen. Life is chaos, right? But, you always have control over this and subsequent actions, like what you're going to do in response to things. So if you have a strong vision for what you want to do in your life, like I firmly believe, living day to day is just about the discipline side of it. And so if you want to go do festivals for the weekend and party hardy, do it. If you want to wake up at 5 a.m. and hit the gym and, go to bed at 8 p.m., do it. If you want to travel 3 weeks out of the month, do it. If you want to stay rooted in a community for a couple of years and, put in the work to build up daily friendships with people and reach out, do it, right? Whatever you want to do, like you are in as much control as you can be of your own existence, right? You are infinite. I think it's the easiest way for me to describe it. Like you can do anything you want. So, they tell you like in school, like, oh, when you grow up, do you want to be a firefighter or a cop or the president or an astronaut? Right. It's like, bitch, I'm already an astronaut. We're on a giant rock in space. What part of this? I'm sorry. Are you confused? So I think people, the kind of I can and can't language, when you're talking about getting over people's limiting beliefs, whether that's in your personal life or like in your marketing messaging, regardless of how you're conveying that, doesn't matter if it's an e-com page or landing page or webinar, whatever, doesn't matter. Everyone has an assumption in their brain when you start talking, when they start absorbing information, it's data, right? It's ones and zeros and binary response systems, synapses in your brain that are accumulating to lead you to form an opinion and decision based on the culmination of all your past history and experiences, right? So if you're, say you're selling a weight loss product, right? So whatever magic pill from the Amazonian rainforest. Okay.
Have you heard of Garcinia Cambogia?
It all sounds like bullshit, right? So like your job, hopefully you're doing this ethically and not scamming people, is to take some fascination, some personal punch in the gut story, some wonderful fact, something that grabs their attention, right, and pulls them through the selling process. And as you're entertaining them, your job is to keep them on the hook like a fish, right? And then, of course, at some point you have to reel them in. And when you reel them in, the big determinant factors, regardless of what you're selling or who you're selling it to, always boils down to, do they believe you?
Mm-hmm.
Do they believe you?
Mm-hmm.
And are they willing to take action? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I say that twice is because you can't sell anybody who thinks you're full of shit.
Yeah.
Like, it's not possible. Right. Because they're immediately just going to go find the solution they're looking for from somebody else with more credibility, that's not scammy, whatever. Right. So there's always a fine line between keeping the fish on the line and going to reel them in, because like price and, location of product, like things like that, those are determinant factors. Like if you're like, oh, this looks like a sketchy thing made halfway around the world from like slave labor, and it probably is just like rice powder and not like a real supplement, for example, talking about weight loss stuff, it's like, do they believe that this pill is going to help them, suppress appetite or whatever, right? Whatever the premise or the product is, at the end of the day, you can't charge $500 for a bottle of supplements. The price elasticity does have a ceiling, right? You could maybe charge 100, 150, right? Max, but like, you're not going to find anybody selling $500 bottles of supplements, because automatically income dequalify 99.9% of people, right? So to make the marketing mechanics behind the offer work, you have to think you have to reverse extrapolate the mathematics, right? You have to think, okay, how can I make this funnel work? Because I have to take into consideration overhead, employee salaries, COGS, any manufacturing fees, shipping, processing, taxes, acquisition costs, obviously, like all these things formulate your P&L. And, the point of business is to provide quality goods and services in exchange for currency.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's a nonprofit, right? In its simplest form, that is the equation.
Yeah.
So regardless of what you're selling or how you're selling it, you are a business that is P&L dependent. And a lot of people think, oh, if I can just get this one thing fixed. It's like, dude, the only thing that matters is the cold, hard truth of the numbers, right? Take your ego and emotion out of it.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to sell somebody something, just realize the reality of the market. You can't sell a $500 bottle of supplement.
Yeah.
I will shake your hand and buy you a beer if you can, but like chances are you're going to sell between $20 and $100, right? You're going to try to sell them as much product as you can of that SKU, and you're going to try to sell them complementary products to boost day zero average order value, and then build a relationship with them and boost lifetime value, right?
Yeah.
It's not a hard equation. The mathematics are simple.
Yeah.
All you have to do is figure out where the area of opportunity is when you're selling something. So going back to the messaging, if you are more transparent, raw, upfront, more believable, and less, oh, this wonder drug from the Amazon that you've never heard of, but don't worry about it because we have some obscure study to back it up. That kind of marketing worked 10, 20 years ago. Now everybody's got a supercomputer in their pocket and can easily Google if it's bullshit. They can look at reviews. They can look at results. They can say, hey, there's 100 other competitors at a better price point with more sales. That's got to be more legit. So like the era of hardcore direct response marketing or salesy slick marketing is slowly dying, right? And honestly, like that is a generational thing as well, because the sad truth of especially the market in the US is middle-aged folks and boomers who are less technologically savvy get taken advantage of more often. Right? It's really hard to pull the wool over the eyes of a sharp like 25-year-old who's been using tech their whole life, right? That grew up with a smartphone in their hand. It's a lot harder because they can spot, a scam or, a page that looks like it was designed by a 12-year-old with products that have labels that are all stuck on wrong and stuff like that. Like, it's easier to spot it. So,
do you think that I was going to ask on that point, do you think that is the VSL, the video sales letter, what's the shelf life in the video sales letter? Or is it just going to morph into some new long form format, podcasts, or whatever?
Yeah. I mean, they're already morphing. I mean, any idiot that tells you any one channel is dead is a moron, right? Oh, email is dead. Really, dumbass? Every single person with any kind of device has an email, right? Yeah. Okay, great. Your email marketing sucks is what I'm hearing. Now there are definitely certain like radio and direct mail for certain verticals, like I throw most of my direct mail in the trash, right? It's all just spam crap. The occasional like utility notice or whatever, because they always, even if you select paperless, most of the time they send one to you anyway. So like for, people in their mid 30s like me, it's like you're going to have a harder time with radio marketing and direct mail pieces. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a lot easier to use those mediums of advertising to reach people who are 60 years old, for example, because they grew up with that, right? They don't, a 60-year-old might not have any idea what TikTok or Snap or, even Instagram is. They might know it vaguely, but is a 60-year-old spending 5 hours a day on TikTok? Probably not.
No.
Right. So, and that's easy to see from the psychodemographics and breakdowns of user experiences on those platforms. So like you can go find any third-party study of like, hey, what's the breakdown of age and how much time they're spending on the platform in Snapchat? Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, obviously it's going to skew towards like 18 to 35. Mm-hmm. So just being aware of all the things when you're crafting that more raw, empathetic, honest marketing message, it's like really think about like what value you're trying to bring, regardless of what you're selling. Like you'll find more success, at least in my experience, if you're selling something ethically, you're honestly trying to put forward good quality product or service, right? And you're doing it in a way that's not too over the top, because that in the long run, you might get the initial sale. But ultimately, if that's your shtick, then that is the association with your brand. If you're a discount brand, let's say you're selling consumer products and say, you're selling clothing and you always price anchor at 5X, right? And you're saying, oh, this hoodie costs $100, but I'll sell it to you for 20 on today's flash sale. If you run perpetual sales, for example, that's your shtick, and people are going to know that you're a discount brand. So good luck trying to sell them anything at full price or even a slightly reduced discount. They're just going to wait for the biggest sale, right? The blowout. So you have to think about the short-term cost. Like when you're thinking about empathetic, raw marketing and really connecting with the individual on the other end of the device, how are you thinking about your long-term strategy? Are you admitting that this, 2-week promo is more hard hitting and isn't designed for brand effectiveness? Because there's a time and a place for 3-day timer scarcity type sales. Like, hey, we've only got 100 units, and when the timer hits 0, the cart goes away, that kind of thing. That's totally fine. I have nothing against that kind of marketing if you're telling the truth about what is happening. But, when you are BSing people or telling tall tales, you will have that brand identity, right? People will lose trust in you as a consumer brand if you're a consultant or providing some kind of service, or you own a SaaS or whatever, and you don't stick true to what you're promising. Like it's better to under promise and over deliver,
for sure,
right, than the other way around.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, when I think about things like that, it's like, what is the purpose of what you're working on? And what is, tie it to the KPIs, tie it to, your good, better, best goals, or however you do reverse measurement and say like, okay, this is our projections for the next 30, 60, 90 days. I almost rarely do projections after a quarter out, simply because like, I don't know what the shift in the marketing strategy is going to be based on the effectiveness of the campaigns we're running now. I have underlying truths that I'm going to say like, this is what I would like to do. But people that stick to a rigid plan for like a year out or whatever, it's like speaking Korean to me. I have no fucking idea what you're saying. Dude. Like, let's just, let's get a good like sprint goal, and then let's be nimble and fluid, right? Because if you can't pivot, you're going to drown, right? So
makes sense. Peter, I think it's super interesting because I'm realizing as we're talking here, I didn't know about the whole Costco operations thing. But I know that you've been like, you have a variety of specialties, like the CRO, you write like high performing video sales letters, kind of like a sort of unicorn. And it's interesting because you have this sort of background of both logistics, the operations, and then also from this whole time we've been talking, it's very clear that it's all kind of rooted in understanding humans, and being that is sort of a touchstone for you, is the humanity of it, how it's actually affecting people. And what would you say, like right now, who can we all look at in your eyes, who's doing a really great job of that and having a tremendous amount of success as a result?
Yeah, great question. Well, I try to surround myself with winners who are passionate about giving back to communities. So like, in a marketing sense, like some of these people are my close friends, and some of them are just people I admire, who I have a loose relationship with. Ron Lynch is up there.
The man
himself. For those who don't know, he's the $5 billion man. Partners with Guthrie Regner. He launched GoPro, Proactive, Cindy Crawford, bunch of other big name household stuff. Has worked with Samsung and other massive companies. Has a great marketing mercenary program for those who want to learn more about empathetic marketing. All around great guy. He's definitely up there. Jesse Elder, David Gonzalez. There's Stefan Georgi, probably one of the best copywriters and community builders out there. There's guys that just understand that asset development and wealth and their own personal benefits are byproducts of what they create. And that's really, it boils down to, are you a creator or a consumer, right? Do you spend all day playing video games and watching Netflix and just enjoying what other stuff, like there's nothing wrong with it. I'd go to concerts and I'd watch Netflix and I'd play, every couple of months I'll pick up an Xbox controller or whatever. Like, I'm not saying don't do any of these things. What I'm saying is, like, this is, regardless of what you believe, you're here on planet Earth now, right? If you woke up this morning, it was a good day, right? I've had some recent deaths in my network, and it's, the mortality talk is the scary one because no one wants to linger on mortality for too long. But if you're not in the ground right now and you're listening to this, it's a good day. I know you have your own demons. I know you have your own shit, family stuff, personal stuff, work stuff, whatever, right? Everyone does. I'm not diminishing that at all, because you are, as long as you're fighting the good fight, more power to you. And a lot of that boils down to surrounding yourself with some of the fellows that I've mentioned, where, it's just, you don't win in life alone. Regardless of how you define success, I firmly believe you can't get there on your own. The best human experience is surrounded by people who love you, who care for you, who enhance your life, who empower you to do better. Right. And so when you're thinking about what kind of communities you want to be in, I've mentioned some guys that are big name in our industries, right? There's tons of guys. I mean, there's tons of gurus out there. There's tons of guys with big companies. There's a lot of guys that are mission focused. Whoever it is that you want to aspire to be, surround yourself with those kind of people, because the rule of 5 is a real thing. Who you spend the most time with will affect who you become. So if you just sit around isolating yourself wherever you live and you're playing video games and watching TV and just consuming but not creating, and you're not making the effort to build real lasting relationships with people around you, right? Or even if they're halfway across the planet, right? Then what are you doing with your life? Because that sounds like taking it for granted what you have. And to me, I've got a history of illnesses in my family. I probably have a bum heart, given my family history. So I'm not assuming I'm going to live to 100. I'm just going to make the most of the time that I have now. And I think that's super important when you're thinking about who you want to surround yourself with, who you can call when you're lonely or need marketing advice or just someone to talk to. And when you're bouncing ideas off of, whether it's a marketing message or a new venture or making a transition out of a 9-to-5 or whatever the hell, right? Whatever you're trying to do, if you have the network of people in your life that you trust and you've surrounded yourself with good, salt of the earth people that genuinely give a shit about you and your well-being, you're doing okay. You're going to be fine. Whatever the decision that seems daunting is in front of you, whatever promo you're trying to craft or acquisition or career shift or whatever it is, right? It is all lightened by many hands. And if you are getting opinions and sharing the emotional burden of your journey with somebody else, like, they'll help you win. They'll help you get there. And so I think, like, for me, when going back to like the empathetic marketing side of things, doesn't matter if it's a raw message, doesn't matter if it's a e-com page or a VSL, and a webinar for a SaaS product or high ticket consulting, or if you're in real estate or mergers and acquisitions, or it doesn't matter what you're in. Like, at the end of the day, if you don't relate to people, if you don't build real relationships with people, and you do things unethically when you come to how you conduct yourself in business and, are in those communities, and like, what are you doing, dude? Like, why are you doing what you're doing? Like, yes, I love nice things and I love money as much as the next guy. Trust me. I want a yacht in the Caribbean and, 10 houses around the planet and all that stuff. Of course I do. Like, come on. But you have to live with yourself, and you have to do what you're doing in a way that sets yourself up for success and the people around you up for success, because whatever that looks like for you. But like, if you're not actively doing something, then you're allowing things to happen to you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's interesting because you kind of took it full circle right now, where you started off this conversation talking about, people just take their shit too seriously, focusing on kind of the wrong KPIs. And you're bringing it right back to these quality relationships and just gratitude and appreciation for just simply being alive. Man, it's so, like, everybody, we all have friends or are personally wreckage of the whole hustle, right? So it's so refreshing to hear that again, that's reminding ourselves what's really important. So yeah, man, I thank you for sharing that. Honestly, it's home.
Yeah, man, I appreciate, like, everyone has a tale, right? Everybody has their story, and nobody's truths are better than anybody else's truths. Like, my experience is not your experience, but like, I am fortunate enough to be surrounded by people who have really like instilled a lot of lessons into me, and also like given so much of themselves freely for my benefit and for the benefit of communities that are in, where it's like, only an asshole would not be as willing to share what they know. Like, I don't know anything more than like, we're two dudes having our human experience, right? And like, it's just whenever I have conversations like these, it's just a great reminder. Like, I don't care if the flashy guru has more money than me, or the big house that I like, that I want, or whatever, right? Like, that's just part of their journey. Good on them, right? But like, it's so easy to play the comparison game and lose sight of like family, friends, your health, being able to be present and enjoy the moment. Those things are more important to me than having $1 billion company. And I might end up having both, who knows? But yeah. At the end of the day, like, if that is your primary North Star, if that's your, how you're measuring success, and it's a whole bunch of attainable things that aren't born out of love and passion, then like, you're never going to be happy, because like, your working hours take up the majority of your life.
It's true. Yeah.
So I don't know, regardless of what you're doing, like, whoever's listening, hopefully that lands for some people, because, at the end of the day, we are meaning making machines, and this is an impact business, if you will. You have an opportunity to create the life you want, and you have an opportunity to bless those around you with shared experiences and wisdom and generosity and your time and your energy. So like, I don't know, if you're not super intentional about how you're crafting your life, then things will just happen, and your life will just kind of happen. And then you'll wake up 20 years from now and it'll be shit.
Truth. Definitely truth. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Peter, man, thank you so much for having a chat today and just sharing your journey with me and with everyone listening. And, to bring it back to super tangible things, you do a lot of amazing work for some really very impressive companies, most of which we can't really talk about, name. But here you are, public facing. And where can people get a hold of you to chat about all the amazing things that you do? What are the best platforms to reach you?
For social, it's probably Facebook. I mean, like, of course, I've got Discord groups and stuff. I don't really, I don't have a Twitter. I don't use a lot of social media. If you want to find me on Facebook or Instagram, that's fine. Just shoot me a message. I'll drop my calendar link for anybody that wants to chat. Like, I'm happy to open up some calendar slots for people if they just want to shoot the shit and talk existential things, or they want help looking at copy or funnels, or just talking about their next impact steps and what they want to do in the world. I'm happy. The way I like to think about handshakes and conversations like this and phone calls is, you don't know who you're going to meet. You don't know how they're going to change your life. You don't know how you're going to change theirs, and you don't know what kind of impact you're going to be able to create together. So obviously, I can't sit on the phone for 8 hours a day or whatever, but I can send you my link. I took down my public facing whatever site to sling my dick around years ago. I haven't done that in ages. So the only way you can reach me is through either my personal phone or my call calendar, or you can DM me on social. On one of those two. Like I said, I don't really use LinkedIn or Twitter anymore. Just, with so many platforms out there, I mean, I can't even keep up with Discord notifications, let alone I can't imagine having, a Twitter and a LinkedIn at the same time.
Yes.
It's just so much shiny object distractions and push notifications that would drive me crazy. So I try to actively simplify.
Your platform is face to face. That's what you're saying.
Well, I would rather work with thought leaders and then disseminate information than be some front-facing guru that's trying to sell you shit and trying to convince people how great I am.
Yeah.
So I am kind of Wizard of Oz in that way. I'd like to be the man behind the curtain as much as possible. Thanks to Ron Lynch for that mentality. Simply because, I don't need to be the guy building the massive audience. I'll just work with the people who already have the massive audience and want to provide even more value to those people. So I like those kinds of partnerships and consulting opportunities and things of that nature. So I don't know, for whenever you drop this episode or recording or whatever, I can ping you over my calendar link and some ways to get in touch with me. But I have a little cartoon bubble on my social media accounts. That's me. If you want to.
That's right. The caricature. That's right. Yeah.
My caricature from
I love that one.
A mastermind that I spoke at a couple of years ago. They drew, all the speakers got little caricatures made, and I thought it was clever. So now I'm the cartoon bubble guy. But yeah, man, I really appreciate it. Obviously all of our time is valuable collectively. And so anytime, like I said, I'm not much of a front-facing guy. I don't make the circuits. I don't speak on stages. I maybe speak at 1 or 2 masterminds a year and go on, podcast or 2 a month. But I don't really. I have nothing to sell you. I have no courses, no programs, no ebooks. I don't do any of that. I have no interest in becoming a guru and trying to convince you how dope I am. But I will provide my contact info for anyone that wants to shoot the shit or talk about their business or any projects, they are working on right now. So I'll send all that to you. And yeah, man, just want to express my appreciation for you and taking the time.
Awesome, Peter. Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us for this episode of VidTao Podcast. Again, my name is Ian Nagy, co-founder of VidTao, and really appreciate you having a listen. And it means a lot. So if you have any feedback, go ahead and email us at info@vidtao.com. Love to hear your ideas for future shows, future guests. If you want to be a guest, let us know. Love to chat. Also, just as a reminder, this show has been sponsored by VidTao, which is our free YouTube ad library, vidtao.com. Again, you can go to VidTao and look up over 1 million ads at this point inside of VidTao. And they're all unlisted YouTube ads. You can see what your competitors are running, track the results on a day-by-day basis, find new ads inside of our YouTube ad library, VidTao. And we also have a premium edition of VidTao. So the library is free to access, but for full unlimited access to the library, we have a premium edition of VidTao. And we also have training from our Inceptly.com agency, which is our sister company to VidTao, where we've managed over $150 million on YouTube. We provide training on media buying, creatives, tracking, copywriting, everything in between. It's all there inside of VidTao Premium. And right now we're running a very special deal on VidTao Premium. And you can go claim that right now at VidTao.com. When you sign up for free, you'll see the offer to join Premium, and go there and check that out. And last thing, we also do free brainstorm calls with our agency Inceptly. Go to Inceptly.com/call. And we love brainstorming with you on your video advertising and just marketing in general. Love to chat. So Inceptly.com/call, CALL. Would love to speak with you. So thanks again for joining us, and looking forward to the next show. In the meantime, have a great week.